Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Today in studio with me, I have the pleasure of having Ira Blacker. He wrote a Blacker, I'm sorry, Ira Blacker. He wrote a book called Once a King, Now a Prince. And he's going to be giving us the highlights and the rundown of his life and the things that got him started in the music industry and how he was, kind of geared to be into the music industry. So once again, I'd like to welcome Ira Blacker to Your Life in America. I'm your host, Stanford Lee. Hey, Ira, how you doing?
Doing great.
That's great, brother. That's great. So please give us a little bit of background about yourself and where you grew up at and why you felt it was important to share your story.
Born in Brooklyn, New York, and in 1942. So I'm what the kids would refer to as an OG. And I grew up in an extremely dysfunctional family. I got started getting whacked from my father at age 2. Uh, I had, I still have, she survived somewhere, a celebrity sister as well. And he married my mother to get into her mother's business. My family had some great entrepreneurial spirit. My grandmother came over here at age 12 from Russia, speaking nothing but Yiddish and a couple of bucks in her pocket. And I think that she actually was raped on the journey over. But she managed to build a thriving business and of all times, the Depression.
And what was that business, Ira?
She became a furrier. She had a fur store on Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn, right near the entrance, a block away, 2 blocks away from Prospect Park, the end of the park furthest away from the city, Manhattan. And my father walked in one day and saw my mother and said, "Hey, this is something I want." He didn't particularly want her because he was in love with the wife that threw him out. And he did see a business to get into. So the short story is he married my mother, did it for mercenary reasons, had a kid, which was me, which would be his second kid because he had a child by another wife, my half sister. And my grandmother figured out who he was, which was basically that he was a putz and an obnoxious human being.
So your grandmother was able to see through him, but your did
Oh,
your mom did
and
your mom see through him, or was it your grandmother that
no,
kind of
my
saw
mother
through?
was a little to the naive side. She wasn't
Okay,
exactly a sleazy chick, if you will. And my grandmother saw this, and my mother, father, and I were living with my grandmother in this nice apartment in Brooklyn. She threw him out of the business. Well, here he was, his goal to get into my grandmother's business failed, and he stuck with the wife and kid, which was part of his tools to get into that business. Needless to say, uh, one doesn't have to think too hard about the resentment in him for being stuck with a wife he didn't love and a kid he didn't want.
wow. So he had the golden ticket, and he lost it because of your grandmother's, being able to see through him, kind of thing. So he was kind of bitter then.
Absolutely. So, the bitterness had to go somewhere. And guess what? He took it out on my mother and he took it out on myself. So, I mean, I was getting beat regularly as a kid. And early on as a kid, around 8 years old, uh, I was finally in school. And as you would expect, in this day and age, as one would expect,
Right.
kids who are coming from severe abuse start acting out.
Yes.
And my first bout with show business was in the first grade, second grade, when I was like 6. And I was acting out in class, attention seeking, and the teacher put me in the closet. There I was with the coats in public school, whatever the hell number it was, and I'm with the closet. So
Wow.
what do I do? You give them lemons, make lemonade. This was my first bout of stand up, albeit in the closet. And I was making the kids in the class laugh from behind the closet doors. Eventually, I mean, that kind of behavior just went so far. and I was taken out of school by my parents because the powers that be, the intellects of the day, if you would, thought the best thing for me to get out is to get out of that abusive home.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you this then. When you were getting out of the home, I know that that's at a very young age. When did you first actually leave your house then? Did you
Six,
leave with your
six
mom or
months
did you?
old. No, no. My mother didn't have it in her to leave my father, so they stayed together. I was the one that was initially. I was sent to for observation. They called it, quote unquote, until they could figure out what to do with me. So for 6 months, I was in a loony bin at six
Uh,
years old. And some of the sights I had seen. It's in my book, Once a King, Now a Prince, where if you saw like zombie movies or horror movies that the kids love today,
right.
these are sites that I saw with people around me in the loony bin. It was Brooklyn's answer to Bellevue, Queens Community
Wow.
Hospital.
Yeah.
So anyway, I survived that, and I came home for about a few months, not a very long time, and immediately was sent to a place called Hawthorne Cedar Knolls, which sounds like a wonderful prep school pre-Harvard. It
Right.
wasn't. As a result of it, I missed basically all of my education in public school, the initial couple of years because of, me acting out, and then being sent there where there was not any education. Knock on wood, I had certain abilities that most children didn't have. I was very bright, so I was able to figure out things that most kids who are abused
Did
less
you
than
have?
able to do. So I was able to, before there was a new math, I was partially doing new math in the 50s because I had to figure out how to, I got coins, how do I count? And I devised a methodology in the 50s, which was, I don't know, 30, 40 years before it ever happened, that I was rounding to tens. You know, how much
Right.
is 6 and 5? Well, 6 and 4 is 10 plus,
Right.
rounding to tens. It's a standard feature of new math today. So knock on wood, I was able to survive. But the main thing about Hawthorne, it was a respite from my father, and I was just there to vegetate.
Mm.
People
So
left me, people left me alone.
while you were there, did this skill set allow you to make friends, or did it advance you in any kind of way? Did
No,
it help you
zero,
maintain? Okay,
zero.
zero.
It allowed me to, except for a couple of occasions with bullies who were older. Um, Basically, people left me alone. I was allowed to wander. I was allowed to go where I wanted to go, do what I wanted to do, and I actually liked it. There's a chapter in the book called "The Tall Grass" where I ruminate about wearing my sheepskin jacket on a slightly chilly um, autumn day, and I'm laying in the grass, just looking up at the stars and contemplating my navel. I mean, it's not exactly one of life's great pursuits to contemplate your navel, but
Right,
the bottom line is I at least was granted the time and place to contemplate my navel rather than feel threatened where all of a sudden I'm going, wow, don't hit me, don't hit me.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I think I became a good person. And I do have a degree, a 4-year degree in speech. Uh, and I did stand-up comedy. I did a lot of MC work in my early days before going into the music business professionally. I wound up speaking to thousands. So I've always been glib. But where does it come from? Don't hit me. Have you thought about this?
Right, right. Yeah,
Parents
well,
would
yeah, well,
wallow in it.
yeah, that's a survival mechanism, quite honestly. Yeah, from
Exactly.
when people are feeling threatened and they don't have any other way, they're hoping that they can kind of bring it down a little bit, or change the temperature in the room by,
Exactly.
putting
So
putting some humor into it.
the issue with Hawthorne was it offered me solace, solitude. I was left alone, And that, I guess, was crucial. I mean, it was like several years of my life. By the time I got out, I'm just thinking, 12, 12 and a half. And
Can I ask you something about your
yeah,
sister, your half sister?
yeah,
So did you maintain a close relationship with her, or how did that relationship
that
evolve?
ended
Or
when I was 4 years old. And it's interesting. I was so, I guess, angry. I felt betrayed. My father was an abuser, aggressor. My mother did the best she could trying to protect me. She was not an abuser. My sister lived with us until I was four, and she helped take care of me. And then all of a sudden, when her mother, who was a beautiful, beautiful woman, movie star quality, which my sister became a movie star, um, married her first millionaire, she took my sister back. So at 4 years old, I had another issue. My first issue with abandonment. One of my caretakers, which was my sister, left. I felt betrayed. And as wacko as I was as a 4 year old, because I was acting out already, I had all the symptoms of an abused child. Um, I actually was up on the roof one day in my grandmother's building and I tossed a brick off, narrowly missing a kid in a crate in a baby carriage.
yeah, I read
Head
that.
foot.
Yeah, yeah. And you said you couldn't blame all of your behaviors, or your parents couldn't be blamed for all of your behaviors. But
No,
yeah,
but the root for
yeah.
it was my father because he was a total villain who basically his only self defense was, "You think you got a bad kid?" My father broke a chair off my back. He was proud to show me the scars. I mean,
Wow.
he thought this was appropriate behavior. I hated it. He's mentally ill. That's the bottom line. My father was mentally ill.
So did you seek? So what brought you joy then, Ira, at a
Well,
young
my
age?
first respite, I basically was happy with the solitude from being sent away. I wasn't happy at being sent away, but I was happy at least there was nobody was bothering me. I didn't have to worry about when I was going to get beat up again.
Mm.
So I then continued to pursue the solitude. And then there was a chapter in my book, which I just wrote a blog about and expanded upon on the website. It's the latest blog where I used the last line of a chorus from Up on the Roof, 1962 by the Drifters. When this old world, yada, 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 up on the roof. And big hit at the time. Anybody who's into the old music knows the song. Lowrider Special, I'm sure. And we lived on the top floor of the apartment building on Glenwood Road, a walk up, 4 floors, 4 flights of stairs, which my mother had to walk up daily with her varicose veins. Oh, we can't access your videos, I was just told. That's your
Yeah,
sister.
you just froze, but we can still continue with the interview, and
All right,
I'll figure out
well,
a workaround.
we
Go
hit,
ahead.
what do we do? We hit the close button.
No, we'll just keep rolling. And I don't know, something
Mhm.
changed on your end. I
How's
don't
that?
know what it
How's
is.
that?
Nope, you're still frozen, Ira. Something paused or froze on your end.
Hold on. I mean, um, we lived in a four-story walk-up on Glenwood Road, which was 1 block from Nostrand Avenue in Brooklyn. It's an area called the Junction, which features Midwood High School, my alma mater, and Brooklyn College, which was not my alma mater. I graduated from Hofstra. And living on the top floor allowed me to do something that was somewhat unique. I couldn't afford a portable radio at the time, and I'd go up to the roof. I would take a blanket, take my dog Blackie, and we'd hang up out on the roof. And I had this conventional plug-in radio with a long extension cord that I would drop over the roof, bring it into my window right below where I was sitting, and plug it in. So I had music. And I would listen to Jocko's Rocket Ship Show. Later on, Murray the K, Alan Freed, when he went into New York. I would listen to WNJR with Jack Walker, the Fast Shave Talker, where I got my taste of blues and R&B like Tar Heel Slim and Little Annie, all the real funky R&B.
Okay.
And it was great because it not only allowed me in later years to have conversations as an authority because I knew blues with people like B.B. King and client of mine, Albert King, client of mine, Bobby Blue Bland, client of mine, Howlin' Wolf, client of mine, Savoy Brown, Rory Gallagher, the
Oh,
Irish blues guitarist. I knew what the blues was, and
right.
I could talk about it, which helped me in the acquisition of artists and having a relationship with the artists.
So,
But
so,
anyway,
so with all of that, then, Ira, when was your first booking as an actual agent, or how did that
oh,
process come in?
so down the line, this was my taste. This is where I learned as a listener, if you will, where I was a great fan of doo-wop. I still to this day I'm about there's a book called The Book of Doo-wop, which lists all the famous songs and not so famous in doo-wop music. I have the complete book minus about 150 songs. So it's one of the world's biggest collections of digital doo-wop. And this was the era I grew up with, the music I listened to, and the days when, particularly, I loved the New York sound, which featured the great harmonies, the big booming bass, ba-boom, ba-boom, the vocal bass, which, it didn't come back till the 70s with the beatbox,
Right.
the high tenor, the falsetto, all that great singing of those days. First and foremost, I became a fan. And by the way, you went black for a minute there. No pun intended.
I've always been that for my whole life. So,
There you go. Well, there you go. So I became a fan. I did when I was 15, I was 19. I worked in Sam Goody's in their 45 department selling records. But basically, getting into the music business was while I was in college. My fraternity wanted to run a dance. A buddy of mine decided we were going to be the guys to run it. We booked a group called the Laddins. They had a hit several years earlier called "Did It." Prior to them becoming the Laddins, they would be Aladdins, famous doo-wop group. And the fraternity got Weasley. They backed out of the dance. My partner and I, Larry Marshak, we ran the dance. We packed it, 1,200 kids. I did the MC work. I brought in bands, and next thing I know, the guy was. We had an agreement with him. If one night a week went, we would add additional nights when possible. He screwed us. It didn't work out. Another couple of club owners came in, Jewish mob guys from New York, Arnie Silver and Bernie Kurtz.
wow.
And they said, "We'd like to make you an offer you could refuse. We have a club we want you to run." I didn't know it was a bust out joint. You run it, take all the cash and run.
Right.
So I was running this club. I did all the MC work. I did a little stand up comedy, and I was good at it.
Now, how
Doing
old were
well,
you? How old were you when all of this
19,
was going?
19.
19.
Early
Okay.
years, this was like around 1962, thereabouts.
So let me ask you then, were you leaning on your savvy with your math skills, and how are you doing the distribution of the profits and those types of things when
I got
it
a salary.
you got a salary?
Really,
Okay.
$50 a week for me, $50 for Larry. Anyway, the reason the issue with being at a bust out joint, eventually the creditors will nail you. The sheriffs closed the joint down. I finally get this amazing band called the Emeralds, featuring Hank Cardello, great lead singer, drums. They were part show band from the old school, like Louis Prima, where there was, passing, changing hats, standing up. He stood up and played drums, sang lead. Four lead singers, we went to the diner back in the early '60s. If you ever saw the movie Diner, that's what you did. You went for some eggs, and we talked business over some eggs. And I said, "Look, you're out of work. I'm out of work. I'll manage you." That was my first real connection. Put them in New York City at Trudy Heller's, the Gingerbread, Joel Wonder's The Eighth Wonder. the Metropole, all these places, people couldn't believe them because in the early 60s, the music was Stanford Lee, Joey D, the sax player sang lead, there were no harmonies. So these guys were an anomaly. Four-part harmony, all four members could sing lead and play their instruments at the same time. So
Right.
all of a sudden, the Ruggiero brothers, who were part of the Gallo gang, believe it or not,
Right.
nice people. We became pretty friendly. We would go out to clubs occasionally. And they said, "Who else have you got?" Who else have I got? Well, I had nobody, but I wasn't going to say that.
Right.
These others from a few auditions. So from managing them, I became an agent. And I started booking a lot of bands. And I was extremely successful at it, made a lot of money. My last year working from my bedroom at home 1 day a week in 1964 or five, I think I netted 12 grand
Wow.
cash
That's a lot of
net.
money back then. Yeah.
Back, oh, that's like 150 grand today for a kid working out of his bedroom 1 day a week. And then,
Yeah.
and those bands who worked the city, I would run down to the city on Sunday night, collecting my commission just to make sure they wouldn't spend it.
Right. So
And
so
yeah,
with
so
so
I
with all of
started
that,
with all the next thing I started booking nightclubs and buying acts from the big agencies. I expanded the local business. I met a gentleman by the name of Larry Maggott who worked for Capital Booking, and he told me Saul Safian, who I knew, now deceased, was looking to hire somebody at Associated Booking Corporation. I met with Saul. He made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I was just graduating college. I was going to teach school somewhere in the hood, I'm sure, because that's where you were put. And I had my lesson plans together. I had my speech to the class about, hey, I'm here to save you. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to save you. All the bullshit, the great white shining knight.
right, right.
And they
Ha-
made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And I went to work with Joe Glazer, who left Chicago as Al Capone's whoremaster
wow.
with $2 million in a suitcase to found Associated Booking Corporation. He had Louis Armstrong, all the big bands, and all the Motown acts.
Right.
Saul was the one handling the Motown acts.
Yeah.
So I went to work for him. And there's some great stories in the book about Joe Glazer, I tell you.
Yeah. So tell me some. How did you kind of had to be a Chamberlain, right? And I guess in a certain sense, because at that time with the way America was structured and the discord or the racial overtones and stuff. How did you move through working with the blues or people of color and then other people, or how were you? How did you connect with other people during that
I,
time?
I don't I don't know. I mean, I'm first thinking about that now. Um, hey, there was racism in New York in those days too. I mean, it wasn't the big liberal city people make it out to be.
Right.
But I was naive. I didn't think. I never. This almost sounds trite to say. I never thought about color. My first black friend, I was 15 years old. I went to jail for him. Believe it or not.
Wow. Okay.
Uh, because he showed up with another buddy of mine, and 1950s car, yells up at the windows like people do in the cheap neighborhoods. And, okay, let's go for a ride. Whose car is it? My uncle loaned it to me. Next thing I know, he pulls up, let me, I want to get some cigarettes. He goes into, we get out of the car, he goes into a candy store to buy some cigarettes, and he's stopped by a cop. And the cop says, license and registration, which he had neither. And, well, I got to take you down to the station.
Wow.
I said, well, what do you want me to do? He says, no, you don't need to go with me. This was the driver talking, the brother.
Right.
And I said, no, we can't leave you like that. We'll come with you. Well, the first inkling that something was hinky was when we're walking up the stairs in the police station, and he says, hey, the window's open. Let's go for the open window. Let's jump out. I says, what are you, crazy? But needless to say, I spent a night on a cement slab trying to support my black friend. I mean, I had a lot of black artists I also represented. I never
Okay.
looked at them other than the talent was such because of the heritage. and that was that. Because I did things like when there was a major white rock and roll festival, I
Right.
put Earth, Wind, and Fire on that festival. Average agent wouldn't have done that. It was a different audience. But I
Right.
wanted that audience to see Earth, Wind, and Fire. I
Yeah.
put Fats Domino, and I could have gotten fired with this. This was before I had my own agency in the Fillmore, deprived the agency of full week commission because Fats was a weekly, he worked like Mr. Kelly's in Chicago, 6 nights a week, 7,500. I put him in the Fillmore. Why? Because I thought the audience needed to see Fats Domino. This was root music. You don't know shit until you know who Fats is.
Right. Right. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I, I did it with Fats. You did it with BB King, and I did a lot of cross pollination, if you would. The same way that Buddy Holly and the Crickets played the Apollo in 1958.
Wow. Wow.
Uh,
It is
so,
amazing to hear your life because I was born in '61, so
mhm.
it's good to kind of get a refresher on how things came about in the music industry and how it came about and those types of things. What motivated you then to write your book, Once a King, Now a Prince?
Well, it took me almost 10 years of effort, not that long to write it, but to go back to it, to keep getting back to it. It started out as catharsis. I'm going to write a book about my early life. And over the years, I would get back to it. I forget what the stimulation might have been or not to do so, but I would get back to it, write a bit more, write a bit more. And eventually, I had a friend of mine, James Belisle, Captain, U.S. Army, and he pushed me into finishing it off, which I did, cleaning up the grammar because my grammar to this day is not perfect. But I think I do tell a good story, and I expanded it, covered all the rock and roll period over the years, and the stories of like Joe Glazer. Classic story of Joe Glazer was when he had Japanese promoters. He had Tatsu Nakashima, who was a Yakuza guy, the Japanese mob, and he brought all the bands from America, the big bands, over to Japan in those days. And he came in, he had his translator. So I'm sitting there with Oscar Cohn, who was the VP, Joe Glazer, Tatsu Nakashima, and his translator. Translator says to Glazer, "Do you mind if I need to use your bathroom?" So he goes out and takes a leak. And Joe Glazer looks at Oscar Cohn and he says, "Those goddamn Jap bastards, they don't even know how to speak English." At that point, Tots got up and left the room. It was all an act. He spoke English. There was another time when Joe Sully was hung out the window of Park Avenue for the 19th floor by a couple of mob guys that he owed money to because he was a veteran. I actually, myself, when I was at ATI, which was my company, American Talent International, that I founded with Saul Sakian, who I first went to work for, and Jeff Franklin, that were going to kill me. I had Buddy Miles working under Savoy Brown. Well, I didn't have him. He was working under Savoy Brown, who was my headliner in Brooklyn for the Abinando brothers.
You said
Who
Abindanzo or Abinamdo?
Abadabadaba, the Abadando brothers, who made guys.
Wow.
And
Did you ever feel uh so growing up the way you grew up and then now when you were in this industry and you're working with all these powerful underworld
did
figures.
I feel threatened? Sure.
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
course.
So
Yes,
how
yes.
did you
So the
how did
Abadandos who wanted to kill me, because when Buddy Miles came to me and says, "Ira, can you help me?" We knew each other, but I was not his agent. But I wasn't going to throw the black man under the bus. They
okay.
were skipping it. They didn't want to pay him. Why? Because, hey, the hell with the Moulin Yarn, which is what the wise guys refer to as blacks.
Wow.
Eggplant in Italian.
Wow.
And I said, "Don't worry about it, buddy. I'll take care of it." So I went in, met with the brothers Abundando, and maybe that'll be the title of my next book, The Brothers Abundando, a sequel to The Brothers Karamazov or something. And I said, you got to pay this guy. I'm not putting Savoy Brown on stage until you pay him. And it became a contest to who could motherfuck each other the loudest.
Right.
And next thing you know, we're going to get you. So they start calling my office. We're coming into Manhattan. You're a dead man. So finally, I had a buddy of mine who I think now is deceased. Wazzle was his nickname. They called him Wazzle for Dr. Wazel. There was an old black and white movie of that name. His name was Carmen Denoya. He was the heavy
Mm.
for Morris Levy of Roulette Records. You know, when Morris Levy wanted to get someone smacked around and straightened out, Wazzle was the guy.
He was the guy to call in. Okay. He was the
Yeah,
muscle
so
back then.
Wazzle gets on the phone with the Avadando brothers and say, okay, listen, we'll settle this thing. We'll have a meeting. We'll take this to the table. Take it to the table, which is a typical mob phrase. You've seen it in the movies. And somebody else will be there to meet you. So we meet in Manhattan, and the Abendandos come in. They see me. They see Wazzle. And they look to their side. They see this guy. And one of them says, hey, don't I know you? And Wazzle says, yes, that's Joey P. Joey started out as a button man for Genovese and
Wow.
became a lieutenant in that mob. And all of a sudden, from, hey, asshole, we're going to kill you, I became Mr. Blacker. Don't you remember that, buddy? It's Mr. Blacker to you. So, yeah,
Wow.
there was some scary times.
Right.
There
So,
was some scary
so,
times.
so with that history, did you have a little bit of nervousness, or did you feel like, hey, this is a safe time to, write your
No,
memoir
I
and
mean,
put
I
it
was
out?
always, except for that one time where I frankly got a little overly exuberant and should have watched my mouth, because I was a kid, I was doing very well, starstruck with myself, and I should have kept my mouth shut. Period. Beyond that,
You overplayed that hand for a little
I
bit then,
never
huh?
really had a problem until a guy who I thought was one of my best friends, who was a mob associate, whose cousin was very famous in the mob. I'm just going to keep his name out of it.
Right, right.
Basically, I was going bankrupt. I did go bankrupt, and I was scared. I made some very bad decisions economically, and he was going to show me how to get out of it. He was going to bring me into a rigged card game,
Mm,
which was nothing more than a sting. I
wow.
got stung. I got wiped out,
Mm,
and this guy was a weasel. He thought that because I was down, I must be out.
yeah, okay.
I came back, but he did me.
Right,
But as
right.
far as being fearful of that element, nah, because I saw them all the time. They were in those days. They were part of the industry.
Mm, okay.
All
At,
the independent promotion guys, the record promoters, they were all mob guys.
Wow. Okay. So let's just switch gears for just a minute, Ira. How did you ever go back and reconcile with your dad or have a conversation with your mom? Or, sometimes people have to go back and, kind of kill the demons in their past in the sense of
Yeah,
confronting them or doing something.
I
Did you
did.
ever
I
do that?
did. I
Okay.
tried to. I tried to repair with my sister, but she was irreparable. She was a narcissist, sociopath, I think. And as good as I was to her, including getting her up to my father's will, which included my mother's money as well, if you would. But I
Wow.
took care of her. She still wound up screwing me in the end. I mean, because that's who she was. Uh, and at a certain point, I just stopped trying and I wiped her out of my life. My mother, I spoke to at one point as a young adult, like probably 30s, early 30s, late 20s. And I said, Mom, why the hell didn't you ever leave this man? He abused you. He beat me to death nearly. He said, well, I did it for you. I said, Mom, if you did it for me, you should have left the shit. So,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
it was a different, it was a whole different.
grateful. That's how people look. Women were not easily giving up marriages.
Yeah, yeah, it was a whole
And
different mindset back then. It was it was very traditional roles, and
Very
woman
much.
was, yeah, and no matter what, everything was, you stayed together. That was a big thing back then. You took
Exactly.
whatever the abuse was, and
Do
everything else. Yeah, yeah,
I talked to my father, and I had at one point, this was the '80s, and I confronted him with everything, and he just didn't get it. He didn't get it. Uh, he could justify anything and everything,
yeah, yeah.
and I hung up on him. Didn't talk to him for a couple of years.
Right.
We then reconciled, over the years, we talked further. He was able to admit what he did to a certain extent. He never really could grasp it by the
Yeah,
arms
well,
of the
when you get immersed, that's literally, he grew up at a time where he was literally in an immersion kind of thing, where he was just immersed in it, and by the time that you got to the age to where were able to even approach it, it was just hard. He was just hardwired like that. My dad didn't talk much either, but he would come home, say a few things here or there. My mother was actually the disciplinarian, but my father didn't get in it, but he just knew that, hey, my food better be ready. I'm going back to work on the line. He worked at General Motors, and he worked on the line for like close to about 38 years. And you just wasn't messing with them cats back then. It just wasn't that way, man.
Some of the shit that I put up with growing up was actually comical. I mean, it would make for a scene in a Woody Allen movie. My parents would love to argue at the dinner table because they had an audience, me, the kid,
Yeah, yeah,
and they both would eat and chew with their mouth open. And my father loved borscht. You know what borscht is?
yeah,
It's a Russian beet soup,
yeah.
okay? Which I happen to love to this day and still make, but nevertheless, he eat with sour cream. My father loved sour cream. Very Ashkenazi, Eastern European, you know, dish. And they start arguing, and next thing you know, the food's coming out of their mouth, and they're spitting sour cream all over everything. I left the table covered in sour cream. If I looked white, I surely looked white then.
Right, right.
And it's funny. It did teach me something. It taught me don't eat with the parents, learn to cook, make your own food. And to this day, I'm one of the greatest cooks, chef quality cook you'll ever come across.
Right, right. So, what would you like to share with our audience? And by the way, we have a worldwide audience. We have listeners in
Okay?
Europe, and we also have listeners in South America. But what would you
Well,
like people to take away from this interview? If you could give
well,
them motivation or
rock,
just anything.
talking about rock and roll, which is really, as much as there's a book that, that covers a lot of dysfunctional family life, much of it, the lion's share, is about rock and roll. Number one, there's a lot of glitz. And if you're talking to kids, what I would tell them is these are not role models. These are entertainment folks. Most of them are crazy. Some are sociopaths. Many are narcissists. Many are on drugs. So whatever they have to say is bullshit. You don't necessarily listen to it. Okay, there are very few bright members of the rock and roll community out there with a thinking brain.
Right,
Kiss, Kiss are an exception. Rush were thinking because they were bright people. B.B. King was very bright. Many of them were just downright stupid.
right,
So they're celebrities. They're not role models. That's the
right.
first thing. The
Okay.
second thing, as much as there was glamour to it all, and believe me, it was a lot of fun. I'd go on stage with some of these people, have fun with. When I was managing Kraftwerk, I would go on stage with them and introduce them in German. Mein Damen und Herren. And
Wow.
went into a whole role in German, which I forgot at this point,
Yeah.
but to the audience, and down presenting Kraftwerk. The backstage stuff. A funny story was groupies chased Rod Stewart and I up 26 flights of stairs at the Pontchartrain Hotel in Detroit, knocking on our doors. They said we made it just in time to our doors. There must have been a couple of hundred kids chasing
Wow.
us. And the groupies are out there in front of the doors yelling, "Hey, let us in! we'll do this to your genitals. But there's three of us. We'll do you all at once. We'll dance for you first. We'll suck your toes and this and that, so on and so on. When you're through with me, you even throw me out the window. Uh,
Wow.
and the people who made fun of Trump because he made that remark, he can grab your pussy, pardon my French,
Yeah.
but we saw it on TV.
Yeah.
This is bullshit. This is what celebrities go through. So that's part of it. But there was a lot of heartache that went through all of this. There's when somebody has a big hit and can't follow it up and their career goes in the toilet. Or Badfinger, where most of the band are dead from suicide because the devil incarnate, Stan Polly, pocketed their album advance. And they used to come to my office and say, hey, we just want me money. Give me money.
Wow.
You got to talk to Stan about that. And maybe you need to take a baseball bat or a gun or something. But, and
Right.
they committed suicide.
Mm.
One of them actually wrote a song, which is on an album about that, and then committed suicide. And I write in the book about what it's like to deal with some of these people. You got to excuse my phone, but I'm not going to answer. Uh, Turn it down. What it's like on my end of the desk when you lose a major artist. I lost Deep Purple. Wow. Not only
Yeah.
did I lose Deep Purple,
Right.
but it was one of the guys who worked for me that walked out the door with him to start his own agency.
Okay. Okay.
So that
How
hurts.
right? How are you affected by the recent loss of Ozzy Osbourne?
Um, I didn't represent Ozzy, but I knew him. I didn't know his wife, Sharon. I
Okay.
knew her father, who was a Jewish gangster in London who managed rock and roll bands. I ran into Ozzy. I was on a trip to Paris in the 80s for business, and Ozzy was staying at the same hotel I was staying at off the Champs Elysees. And we ran into each other. He knew of me, I knew of him, of course. And he was so nice and so down to earth. And that's what people have said about him to this day, up to his passing. One of the nicest guys in the music business.
Wow.
And there are some like that.
Yeah.
But then the others, like when I reached out to certain people, like the guys in Foghat were a spin-off group from Savoy Brown. They gave me a testimonial for the back of the book.
Mm.
And it was really heartwarming and endearing when I saw what they actually wrote to me and delivered. They remembered my efforts, they remembered my kindness. People like Uriah Heep of Nazareth and Rod Stewart, they couldn't care less. They headed for the rafters. The minute I said, I wrote a book, I'd love to get a couple of words from you for the back cover. Couldn't be found after the first conversation. It was,
Wow.
hello, how are you doing? Until I said, I need a payback. And, I treated these people very well.
Yeah.
And I did great jobs. I mean, I did things for Rod and the Faces that were unique, that helped their career, like putting together a circus
Right.
it was called the Rock and Roll Circus for Rod Stewart and the Faces.
So,
Uh,
where do you think, from your perspective, where do you think the arc of the industry is now, in the sense of, because when you were in it, there was a lot of payola, or play for pay, if you will, for getting records on the radio now. And now that terrestrial radio is a thing of the past and everybody has a streaming service, how do you see that arc going forward, or where do you see that you kind of got off of it, or got back in it, or yeah, how do you see that?
well, these things have changed. The message is the same. The medium is different. Um, I know there's always somebody with their hand out. Uh, Whatever it is, there's always going to be a way to promote music. Additionally, whether it was giving it away free in streaming and then the actual benefit by touring, and the record companies adapted to all this with that they made deals. They then said, okay, I got to have a piece of your publishing, a piece of your touring, a piece of your mama, and your firstborn.
Right.
So everything adapts based upon how you carve up the pie. But the pie is out there. The pie is going to be carved up. People are going to do what they're going to do, whether corrupt or otherwise. That hasn't changed. I know with respect to the book, there are influences out there. Which I bought a list of all the influencers that I sent out to emails to basically all of them, and most of the responses I got were yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that, and here's what it costs you. They've all everybody has found a way to monetize what they do.
Right.
So it's kind of like the music business got fractured at a point, and then it became like one of those robo monsters where the thing puts it all, it reassembles itself.
Yeah.
One minute it's a car, the next minute it's a fire truck,
Oh, the
and
Transformers.
and
Yeah.
then it's your grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so the industry is simply they put it all back together and they transformed it. It's still out there. There's money is being made. Um, Maybe not in the traditional way of a hard record. It's hard to protect your royalties when everybody could download shit for free.
Yeah.
But there's T-shirt sales, there's book sales, there's some album sales, there's streaming fees, and people just found a new way to wet their beak.
Right. Right. So as we get ready to wrap up, Ira, how many times have you been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or is that a big deal for
Never,
you? Four?
never.
Did you go to any of the bands that you represented or any of the people that you represented? Did you attend any of their Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremonies or anything
No,
like that? No.
no. I mean, I lived it. I didn't need to deal with that. I was well known at the time. I mean, now you might know me because I sent you an email. But there was there's
Come
a
on, man. We
story.
go way back. We go way back.
That's it. Hey, wait, wait. Oh, you're the guy in the car.
There you go.
No, I didn't mean to infer you all live a life. So,
Right.
so, well, bring that point. Repeat
And
that question.
we were talking about, did you attend
Oh,
any of the Rock and Roll
no,
Hall of Fame
no.
people that you
Mm-mm.
represented, induction ceremonies or anything
I,
like
I,
that?
I did live it all. Yeah, I do go to concerts occasionally, but because I was a music major for a while, I was a player for a while, I do have a high degree of taste. Not of talent for music, but a
Right.
high degree of taste. I know the craft of songwriting. I can help writers write better. Um, but I really was a horrible player. But I know good music from bad music. And so it's got to be musical for me to enjoy it. I don't care what the genre is, from rap to symphonic to doo-wop to rock and roll. There's got to be something there beyond the normal trite bullshit and gimmicks. I just
Right.
went to a Dave Koz, the sax player.
Mm-mm. Oh, Dave
Uh,
Koz. Yeah, he just passed. Yes. Yeah.
no, no, no.
No, no. Who
Dave,
was the one? No. Oh. I'm sorry. Chuck Mangione was the one that just passed.
right, Dave
Yeah.
Koz, sax player,
Yeah.
and he had Leo P on the bill, who I love, and I just went to their concert. I drove all the way to downtown Jacksonville to see them live. I was in the front row, and
Wow.
it was a great show, but a high degree of musicality and the showmanship. And Leo P, I love. Leo P is today's um, just a gigolo. What was his name again? The trumpet player,
Oh, so
Louis
we had.
Prima. Louis Prima.
Okay.
Yeah, Leo P is today's Louis Prima, and
Wow.
he brought the show band element back into jazz.
Right.
And I mean, he dances while he plays sax, and he's just crazy.
Yeah. 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 So
So
what?
that's if something is highly musical, I will go see it. If something is an event, I don't give a damn. I was never a big event guy when I was in the business, going to
Okay.
the events. Which was a mistake. I probably would have maybe still even been in the business if I would have been a hanger outer.
Right.
And
I was
that
just
means
about to say that's kind of like living in DC or you lived in New York and somebody says, "Hey, let's go see the Statue of Liberty." You're like, "Hey, whatever, man. I've seen it my whole life."
that's
So
it.
Yeah, yeah. So when you are in the middle of it or into some, like when I was in the military, I saw stuff get blown up or this or that or whatever. And I'm like, okay, people, let's just talk about it. Because I was actually one of the people that had to respond to Beirut back in '83 when they blew up the
Hmm.
Marine barracks. So, I've seen some things, but at the same time, when you see them things, you like, it's just, it is what it is. And you don't really appreciate it while you are in it, Ira. So,
Right.
so I really enjoyed our time together, brother, and maybe
Thank
we can
you.
do it again. Thank you so
I
much
love
for
that.
reaching out. Huh?
Yeah, definitely stay in touch, and I will keep you informed of what's going on. A good way to stay in touch with what I'm doing. Uh, I post everything on X and Facebook, and all the usual
Okay.
places. But in my blog is where I update my story, whatever's going on with the book,
Okay.
and there's a place for you to sign on to get all the as the blogs are written to receive them. And whatever whimsies that come, whatever thoughts and whimsies come to mind, will be in those blogs, and I will be posting them as I have been on a regular basis.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. This has been another episode of Your Life in America. We have Ira Blacker with us in the studio, and his book is Once a King, Now a Prince, and it really covers a good in-depth story of the music industry. Thank you once again. I'm your host, Stanford Lee, and welcome to Your Life in America. Thank you.